eating the males while mating. And of course the male is absolutely tiny, and of course getting friendly with a female redback can be quite dangerous when you're that, because she's so much bigger, so much more powerful than he is, that quite often if he's trying to get friendly with her, she will bite, kill him, and even eat him, which is absolutely grotesque. But of course redbacks, like many spiders, employ webs to catch their prey. Now, while the redback spider's web may look like an untidy mess of a web, I mean, certainly in comparison to the beautiful dewdrop covered ones you'll find in your back garden, that's actually a very cleverly evolved way of catching flying insects. But the main structural weapon of the web is found down below. Of course, in man-made environments like sheds, outbuildings or bathrooms are the perfect place for a redback spider to build her web. Because quite often, as well as the web up top, she also has threads of the web held on the ground under high pressure, and they're a maze of trap lines. I mean, it's almost like someone's taken an elastic rope and stuck it down with a big patch of glue, so they're all over the place. And of course, redback spiders don't just eat their own husbands. In fact, most of what they eat are invertebrates like crickets, cockroaches, beetles and ants. So quite often when an insect like an ant wanders past, it will snag one of those trap lines and then boom! Is catapulted up into the air, so it's almost dangling there. And while they mostly ensnare invertebrates like ants, beetles, crickets, cockroaches and millipedes, the strong lines of the redback spider are strong enough to catch large trapdoor spiders and even lizards. And of course, the more the victim struggles, the more in trouble it's in, because the struggling below causes the line above to vibrate, which alerts the female redback spider, who can sense the vibrations with special sensors along her legs. She then heads down to haul the prey up, bite it and paralyse it. And of course, the venom doesn't just immobilise the prey. In fact, the venom also contains toxins in toxic enzymes in it that actually dissolve the insides of a prey, turning it into a sort of liquid meat soup, which she can then suck down. It is actually quite grotesque. And of course, also that venom that is used to immobilise its prey, unfortunately has the side effect of being extremely painful and toxic to humans. And when I said about 650 people are put in hospital each year by redback spiders, that isn't an exaggeration, because quite often the way people get bitten by these spiders is if they put on their boots or a shirt or gloves that has a redback spider inside it. Quite often she'll get squished and bite in defence. But about 60 or 70 years ago, a bite from a redback spider was as good as a death sentence. So they did kill people back then. But however, in these days, a trip to the hospital and a dose of anti-venom and I'd be right as rain. However, it would still hurt a lot. And so I'd always check your boots or your clothing or gloves when you go to Australia. But also, just be glad that us boys are not male spiders, because if that's what the females do to their own husbands, I do not want to be a spider male. So that is the range of the funnel web. This is the range of the redback spider. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is the largest of its kind and one that's haunted the world's waterways since long before the dinosaurs. It is the saltwater crocodile, also known as the salty. Now, this is the largest species of crocodilian and the largest of all reptiles. And when I say largest, a fully grown male can be well over 6 metres in length, weigh more than a tonne, and has a bite force of over 2,000 pounds per square inch. So probably about 2 or 3 tonnes of pressure, so they have the strongest recorded bite force of any modern animal. And of course, as their name suggests, they live in freshwater lakes, rivers, and even the estuaries and the sea. And of course, they have well-developed senses of hearing, sight and smell, as well as special sense organs along their lips that can pick up vibrations of animals drinking at the water or even struggling animals in the water. And of course, saltwater crocodiles, they feed on all kinds of things. I mean, they mostly feed on large mammals like water buffalo, kangaroos, wallabies, pigs or deer that come down to the waterside to drink. But they also will hunt fish and in the sea, even small sharks. And I'm going to raise my hand here and say that these things do scare me a fair bit because they are also one of the very few animals in the world that will on occasion hunt, kill and eat a human being. And if they do attack humans, they very rarely leave survivors. But in Australia's Northern Territories, the rivers genuinely are full of big crocodiles. And, of course, the local people have learned how to deal with it, so it's very rarely a problem. But, I mean, the only time that people are ever killed by crocodiles is either when they're drunk and go midnight and go swimming in their territories at night, which quite often is when crocodiles do much of their hunting at night, and someone's drunk and goes swimming in their territory, they're in trouble. But also, every once in a while, a crocodile might start to associate people with food, and then that is a problem and it needs to be moved. And quite often, crocodiles can be seen picking up scraps and quite often getting too close to people, which will occasionally turn them into a man-eater. In fact, interesting fact, this leaping here is not actually unusual among saltwater crocs, because they've actually been seen leaping fully out of the water like that to snatch bats as they're roosting above, which is actually fairly new behaviour that's only recently been documented. Of course, saltwater crocodiles historically were hunted almost to extinction in Australia, mainly for their skin to be sold as leather. But they have since been made a protected species, and hunting of crocodiles is illegal unless there is no other choice, like if a crocodile starts to turn into a man-eater. But of course, crocodiles also have a reputation as being cold, hard dinosaurs or mindless killing machines. But that is incredibly unfair and also very untrue, because these animals are also very, very protective mothers. In fact, during the breeding season, when females lay their eggs, because a saltwater crocodile's nest is usually like a big mound of vegetation, and it almost looks like a great big compost heap. They will actually put their lives on the line to defend their eggs or young from predators or anything they might perceive as a threat to their young. And of course, They will even look after their offspring until they're about 1 or 2 years old, and quite often the females have even been known to carry their babies around in their mouths, which I think is actually quite sweet. But also, an interesting fact about saltwater crocodile eggs is that what the temperature that the nest is kept at determines what gender the baby comes out of. I mean, that's evolution for you. And another thing about saltwater crocodiles is that although people often perceive them as mindless killers, they are anything but, because, as I said, these are very protective mothers and will put their lives on the line to defend their offspring. But also, like all crocodilians, and in fact all reptiles, saltwater crocodiles are so-called cold-blooded, so that means they need the sun's warmth to get enough energy in order to start being mobile. So quite often you'll see crocodiles in the early morning lying out like this one here, and the ridges along their backs actually act a little bit like solar panels, that they actually absorb the rays of the sun and bring the warm blood right to the core of the crocodile's body, and that gives them the energy they need to become mobile. And of course, Venom, I mean, that is a bit odd, but also when crocodiles have made a kill, well, as I mentioned with the Nile crocodiles in my 18 Animals of Africa PowerPoint, crocodiles can't bite off mouthfuls because they can only open their mouths open and shut. They can't go side to side, their jaw just won't allow it. So quite often, if a crocodile's made a kill, like of a big animal, like a kangaroo, a buffalo, or even a pig, what they will do is rather than fend off other crocs, they are welcomed to the feast because they're unable to dine alone, as their teeth are grippers and not carvers. So what they'll do is that the crocodiles will all take turns to hold down the carcass, while one will clamp down with his massive jaws and then roll his body, using his bulk to tear out chunks of meat. And crocodiles can actually consume half a ton of meat in one go. And of course, they eat everything: meat, hide, hair, bone, horn and hoof. Pretty much nothing is wasted. And of course, crocodiles often lose teeth doing that, but another will just roll back into place. And they also have probably the strongest stomach acids of any animal, so for them they can digest bone, horn and hoof, and it's usually stored in fat reserves around the base of the tail, and that can see them through lean times, like if it's really, really hot, or in some places really, really cold. Crocodiles will just scrape out a burrow and then almost shut their bodies down completely and go to sleep for a whole year. And it's actually believed that that nifty trick helped them outlast the dinosaurs and survive the Ice Ages. Of course, this is the range of the saltwater crocodile. You can see they're found in Australia's Northern Territories, as well as Papua New Guinea and a fair few parts of Southeast Asia, and even along the coastlines of Sri Lanka and India, right up into Bangladesh. So they are pretty widespread for crocodilians. The next animal I'm going to show you is probably the most venomous creature on the planet, and to my mind, one of the most frightening. It is the infamous box jellyfish. Now, box jellyfish are found in northern Australia, well, in many parts of the sea, but in Australia they're found in the Northern Territories seas. And in fact, they have more developed eyesight, nervous systems, and are more powerful swimmers than any other jellyfish. So they can actually pursue